We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
What if some of the things you were taught to reject about yourself are keys to the love you've always wanted? In today's episode, I sit down with Joanna Shakti, who's a Tantra teacher and intimacy mentor and founder of Ecstatic Intimacy, to explore the sacred dance of masculine and feminine energies. We go deep into what makes relationships thrive and fail, and it turns out it has everything to do with how well we know, accept, and show up for ourselves. This conversation is for anyone who's been burned by love, is confused by polarity, that would be me, or just tired of wearing a mask to feel worthy. Joanna helps us map the terrain from self-abandonment to soul connection. It's a lot more complex and nuanced than just ideas about polarity. Welcome to the Mankind Podcast. Hey, everybody, it's Boysen. Welcome back to the Mankind Podcast. Excited to be with you today. Today is another recommendation from a Mankind Project brother that I know. Shouts to Brett Benson out there who said, oh my gosh, you have to talk to Joanna Shakti. You have to talk to this woman. Joanna, say hello.
Hi, it's so good to be here with you guys.
I'm excited, and I think that you and I have been we're certainly in kind of the same universe and spheres, and we've circled around each other in space for some amount of time now. I think probably for a long time, and we probably have a lot of friends in common.
We have a lot of friends in common, surprisingly, that we're just meeting.
Yes, that we're just meeting. Let me tell you a little bit more about Joanna. Joanna Shakti, the soul love TM mentor and founder of Ecstatic Intimacy, has been described as smart, sexy, and a little bit spicy. You can't miss her passion and warm, playful style that both entertains and inspires. Our pre-conversation for this was definitely an example of that. She's got one-of-a-kind experience, expertise, and ability to transform lives artfully and professionally, mixing masculine feminine dynamics, lots about that in the podcast today, leadership training, spiritual awakening, engineering, no clue what that means, we'll probably learn something, and even Tantra, along with a whole lot of love to lead singles and couples who hunger for deeper love and more intimate pleasure to find and create soul-to-soul relationships. So if any of those things trigger an interest in you, stick around today. We are going to be talking about relationships and love and intimacy and soul connection and masculinity and femininity. And we're going to start there on some level. So Joanna, what got you into this exploration of what you call the divine dance?
What got me here, Boysen, is I think some of what gets a lot of us onto our journey is the pain. It didn't work. It was confusing. I didn't understand it. And so go back 2001, actually the week of 9/11. Well, it got introduced to me a little bit earlier in the year, but it was really the week of 9/11 that where these words masculine and feminine, I knew what they were. Of course, I'd heard them, but I'd never considered how they applied to my life, how they applied to my sex life, why I was divorced, why I was exhausted, why I was successful and promoted. At that point in time, I had an electrical engineering degree and an MBA, and I was climbing the corporate ladder in oil and gas and high tech in Houston, Texas, with the good old boys in the middle of the 90s.
Wow.
And at 27, I was managing 60-year-old men. And to say that created some dynamics is an understatement. And what I thought I had to be growing up in the heart of the women's movement,
Yes.
growing up in the heart of the divorce movement in the 70s, watching my parents go through incredibly crazy relationship dynamics and trying to interpret all of that and make meaning of it. And of course, it's all false meaning, but it's the best we can do when we're in the experience. And so marry all of those things that I've just touched on and put me in 2001, divorced, non-orgasmic, overwhelmed, exhausted, pissed at men, but in love with men. And I hear these two words, masculine and feminine. And as they got described to me, I literally describe it as I spent 8 hours on that day in that event with my jaw on the floor going, oh my God, this explains everything.
Wow. So contextualize that. What was the context for this hearing and learning?
Yeah. So the context, we were in a life mastery. I was in a life mastery event with Tony Robbins.
Right.
He was teaching David Data's work on that particular day.
2001.
Earlier in the week.
Okay. Yes.
Yep. 2001. Earlier in the week on 9/11, he had used the warrior, king, magician, lover that I know is such a core, those masculine archetypes that are such a core part of the MKP journey. He had used those to create an incredible healing between two men. So I'd witnessed that from a masculine perspective. And then he starts talking about Data's work. And I'm like, oh, wait, I'm proud of outmanning the men. Wait, being feminine. Yes, I want to be asked out. Yes, I want to be pursued. Yes, I want to be against the wall in that kiss. But no, that means I'm weak. I'm passive. I'm not enough. I'm all of these stories. And I was like, but wait, that woman that he's talking about, that in this case, feminine woman, because femininity and masculinity are not necessarily correlated to gender.
Good. Yes.
So let's put that on the table. But for me, cisgendered, feminine, what I realized was feminine woman, but she was buried in the closet. I didn't want anything to do with her because dad left. I never wanted to depend on a man. I never wanted to be less than a man. I wanted to prove how powerful I was. And man, did I do that in the corporate world. My last boss before I quit called me a bully. And I was like, what? I don't even understand. But the level of masculine energy that I was running, that get it done, make it happen, I've got it, solid, decisive. And I was exhausted because my body is not constituted to run that level of energy. Nor are people who are predominantly masculine constituted to run a high level of feminine energy on a consistent basis. And so it was that wake-up call of, wait, there's an authentic being of masculine and feminine energy within me and within all of us. And my hero's journey was so fast, if you want to call it that, because I left that event that night knowing I would leave corporate, knowing that my work was to figure this out so that I didn't have to have any other women go through the pain that I went through. And I didn't want any other men to go through the pain that I put men through, because my journey of trying to prove who I was took a lot of men down. And I disrespected a lot of men. And that was not okay. I didn't do it intentionally. I thought I was being who I was supposed to be.
So I'm interested. Thank you so much for laying out some of the story. I'm really interested. We put that on the table.
Yep.
Masculine man, feminine woman, femininity, masculinity. So let's tease into that a little more. But as you were talking about that, and this is true in the king, warrior, lover, magician kind of world too. It's like positive expression, negative expression, over-identified, under-identified, overexpressed, underexpressed, kind of ups and downs, right? So
absolutely.
Talk more about that, the overexpression, underexpression kind of stuff.
I love that you asked that question. It is one of my favorite things to really work with individuals on. And the way that I talk about over and under expression is, and I saw this in myself, but use the yin yang symbol. which
Yeah.
is one of the most ancient symbols of this dance, this divine dance that we're talking about. They can't be separated from one another.
Right.
And yet they're in deep relationship with one another. So the way that I'll often describe it is that yin and yang symbol is that, of course, the yin, the feminine, the yang, the masculine. But what many of us don't pay attention to is that within the center of the yin is the fully enclosed circle of yang. The yang feeds the yin, the masculine feeds the feminine, and the feminine is at the heart of the masculine. So when I talk about overutilized, underutilized, overamped, underamped, as I'll sometimes say, is that we are, for me, as that go get it done, outman the men, prove that I can be successful, I had that center of yang energy, that masculine energy. If we call that a regulator valve, it was so far open that the complete feminine energy was totally obscured. Like there was no place for that to express because that valve was so far open. And I thought that's what made me respectable and lovable and sexy. Not so much. And then what's interesting that I find, and I see this with both the predominantly masculine beings, predominantly feminine beings, is that while we are typically overamped, we are simultaneously typically underamped. And what I mean by that is that for me, it was also having that regulator valve closed because I had no boundaries. I had no capacity to say no, which is a masculine. To be able to set our boundaries and hold that line is our masculine energy. So while I'm overusing it to get things done, I'm also underutilizing it, and there's no self-care here. There's no self-honor here. There's no sovereignty here. And on the masculine side of that the nice guy syndrome that we know so much about, and that yin energy gets overamped, trying to please, trying to be the good guy, trying not to be that guy that there's so much expression of and so much pain of still in our world.
Yes.
But so that yin energy gets way over opened. But then there's also in that a closing off of the true vulnerability, the true heart. And so over and under, I see us all until we do the work, until we're in the pattern. And then we still have to notice, when am I over-indexing, under-indexing? But that we want to come into that right relationship authentically for each of us individually.
Yes. Good. Great. Yeah, I love that. So it's not that, oh, because I'm this, then I need to lean further this. It's that the whole picture with the whole dynamic, I'm getting closer and in touch and self-aware enough to slow down enough to relax into what is actually authentic to me.
Yes.
And what feeds me and what drains me, and and leaning into those pieces. Yeah, I think that's a really nice way of understanding. And I think that there are lots of stereotype pieces that we could kind of see and play with. And I recognize, it's interesting as you were describing yourself, as you were describing that kind of overamp. That sounds similar to a conversation that my wife and I have been in over the years about, different background stories, but different kind of, where do we find ourselves in relation to all of these things together, and how can we support one another in that, both pushing forward and pulling back, pushing into and relaxing from.
Yes.
The dynamics that we probably that I certainly picked up, when I was a wee boy.
Yep.
Learning what I was supposed to be like in response to all of the, as you said at the beginning, pain that I experienced in childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. And there's a couple of things that I just want to jump on with what you just said is, so these dynamics, and there's so much conditioning. The
Yes.
level of conditioning that we are living in as masculine beings, as feminine, as women, all of our expressions, the expectations and the conditioning are enormous. And those stereotypes, and so the authenticity, I call it ecstatic authenticity. Like, it feels so good to finally be who we are and not twist ourselves into a pretzel, not settle, not sell out. So that authenticity is at the heart of it. And then we're dealing with this world of conditioning. And so we have the masking. Again, I know you guys talk about that, is the facade that comes in front. So I had a huge masculine facade. And so many men today, because there's so much conditioning and judgment of that deep masculine expression, that they pull back from that and don't want to be that, but then they're not being themselves. And so there's this feminine mask and the stereotypical expressions of that, but then the relational dynamics. And we're trying to honor each other, but there's what I'll describe as our authentic. Who are we when we really pull back the masks and we know we're safe? Who is that being? But then who are we presenting? How are we showing up with those masks? What's the actual expression? And our journey, our job is to bring the actual and the authentic into alignment with each other. Mm-hmm. But clearing that space in between those two expressions is where the work that you're talking about with your wife shows up for all of us. It's the beautiful place where we can play with it and start to see, how do I live? How do I come home to me? And then how do I consistently live there? But in mastery, be able to go wherever I need to go in those two expressions. And then, oh, by the way, attachment styles will muck all kinds of havoc on top of this. That'll play into our relationships. So yeah, like, this is the playground for us to come home to ourselves.
Do you want to talk about attachment?
We can touch on attachment.
Yeah. So layered in, right? So it's part of that socialization. It's part of that enculturation. It's part of that for young boys. A lot of domination, right? A lot of, if you do this, then you are going to get smacked down kind of stuff. So now let's mix that with attachment. If you want to just touch attachment styles briefly, let's do it.
Awesome. Let's do it. And I think there's an interesting piece that you're bringing in that I haven't articulated in quite the way that you just did. So I'm loving this. And let's play with it a little bit, because those attachment styles. And so let's look at kind of the traditional, where the masculine is going to play attachment style and where the feminine is going to play attachment style, and then how those can get flipped and reversed. Because that happens in so many of our relationships, not just with attachment styles, but how we're showing up. I've seen so many truly authentically masculine men show up in their work and in their profession and in their service, be very masculine, and then come and be with their more feminine partner. But the feminine partner standing in that masculine energy, and the masculine partner standing in more of the feminine. So we have some polarity, that there's some attraction, but it's reversed. And so it doesn't have the strength and the security of it. And that's also going to play to the attachment styles. So if we keep it super simple, because the masculine pole in the masculine feminine dynamic stands for sovereignty, the masculine is always going to hold the pole that pulls towards freedom, that pulls towards individuality. The feminine holds the pole of unity, connection, oneness. And so she's always going to pull the feminine. I'm using the female pronoun, but I'm meaning the feminine. The feminine is always going to pull towards the we. The masculine's going to pull towards the me. The feminine's going to pull towards the we, which means that from an attachment style, because the feminine's pulling towards the we, she's going to grasp. She's going to have that anxious. I want the security. I want to know you're there. I want to, don't go away. And I'm not secure if you pull away. But the masculine, wait, I need my individuality. So the masculine is going to take that oh my gosh, my brain is doing a thing right now. Avoidant, the masculine
Avoidant
is going to
attachment.
pull towards that avoidant because the avoidant is pulling towards separation. The anxious is pulling towards connection. The avoidant is pulling towards separation. It's unconscious and unhealthy, but both people, both of those energies, I'll say, are trying to lean into the core masculine or the core feminine. And then when we're reversed, the nice guy can pull the anxious. And where I was showing up, there's a lot of names we could use for it that aren't so kind, but that we'll use the nicest one, the strong, independent woman. She's going to have some avoidant tendencies because she's got to maintain that sovereignty. If she goes into the we, she feels at risk. And so it gets so mucked up in there. And this is part of now, I think, where we pull in, but I'd love to hear your reflection, is where you're describing like that masculine, you'll get knocked down. So then my imagination, what you're saying is, but I want to hear it from you, is that's where the masculine stops claiming who he is and starts pulling away and actually wanting to be loved, but not being who he is. So he never really feels that love.
That's great. And what occurs to me is now I'm immediately sitting and thinking about mother wounding and father wounding kind of issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm aware of for me is I had an anxious kind of attachment to my mom because of stuff that happened, and because my mom was a mother of multiple children, and like the next baby was born 18 months after me, and like all of those kinds of things, right? So part of my men's work has been healthy individuation.
Yes.
Right? So healthy individuation means being able to separate myself from that kind of mother archetype, the original, my mom, right?
Yep.
To separate myself from that, recognize that was that, so that I can actually show up in my primary relationship to my wife in a way that is from choice and healthy attachment, healthy moving toward, to be able to recognize that when my wife reaches out, when Kendra reaches out to me, for that, I need to feel you here. I need the unity here. I need to know that you got my back here. I need to know that you're on my side here. Like all of these things that have shown up, that my reactivity from my mother wounding doesn't get in the way of me being able to show up fully in that place.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So then I can stand in it, and that gives Kendra the space to, from her own childhood stuff and her own process of individuation, to be able to say, oh, I don't have to do it on my own.
Yes.
I don't have to push you away because fuck you, I don't need you anyway.
Right.
Kind of energy.
Yep.
Right. And we can stand for each other.
Absolutely. And it's so, you're describing that wounding is such a key part of understanding why even the deepest soul aligned, and maybe even not, I'll say not even, but because of the deepest soul aligned relationships, I believe we attract the partners that are here to evolve our souls. And as you're describing that, the strong, independent woman needs to know, this was part of my own journey, different words, but that it's okay to lean in. It's okay to have needs. It's okay that interdependency is not the same as dependency. And so we move in and out of the space. But that secondary part doesn't have to freak out when you pull into your sovereignty. And your little boy doesn't have to freak out when you move into your unity. Yeah. And this is the gift that we can give each other to hold ourselves. And it's a level of mastery to be able to hold ourselves and hold our partner as we're navigating our youngsters and our present day you and our patterns and our desires and our knowing. And this is the sandbox. This is where it gets real, and it's where it gets exquisite and deep and powerful and passionate and indescribable.
So that could be what you're talking about when you're talking about ecstatic intimacy. Yeah.
It would be. It would be. Absolutely. This journey, if I take love, and really what we're talking about is love. It is love of self. It is love of beloved partner, intimate partner, but it's also love of family and love of community, and eventually love of humanity, love of life. And what's our journey? Acceptance and resistance. And so this path of love. But everything that happens in our journey has to do with what's happening in this relationship with self. And that's where I talked about ecstatic authenticity. Who we're being, what's the relationship that I have with me? Have I brought my authentic and my actual masculine and feminine together? Do I know that I'm lovable without having to perform? Do I know that I can show up big and bold and still be honored, that I don't have to shrink back and play small? Do I know that I've got my patterns and I'm going to screw up and I'm human and I'm still going to love me and I'm still going to let you see me? So the first part of this ecstatic intimacy journey, which is actually the middle phase of the journey, is predicated on having the relationship with yourself. So the strength of the relationship with you determines or limits the strength of the relationship you can have with anyone else. So it starts with that. And when we're willing to be seen in the good, the bad, and the ugly, it is the first place where we are truly available for intimate love, for any kind of love for that matter, relational love. Because if I think that you're not going to love me for some part of me, I will never trust the love that's coming to me. I'll never be fully available for it. So that's our transition point from ecstatic authenticity, who we're being, to ecstatic intimacy, how we're relating. The masculine and the feminine dance, the soul to soul. We've come together to evolve each other's souls, but dang, you're pushing my buttons and you're pissing me off and some part of me wants to bolt. Or this isn't the right relationship because it's hard. Maybe, but not necessarily. Because if we don't learn the lesson, we're going to go repeat it somewhere else. So this ecstatic authenticity is navigating the ups and the downs, where when we learn to consciously hold the masculine and the feminine and our conflicts and our challenges, they become connection and communion. They make the bond deeper and stronger. And we marry that ecstatic authenticity and that ecstatic intimacy, the being and the relating, we get ecstatic ecstasy. And ecstatic ecstasy is the life and the love making that takes our breath away time and time and time again. And so what I was pointing to, what you picked up on, was the ecstatic intimacy that takes us into the greatest life that we could ever imagine living. And that's the ecstatic ecstasy.
And tongue in cheek, he says, and we're all just running around out here looking for that person, that perfect person that's going to activate all of this in ourselves, and and everything's going to. So what I love about where you're coming from, and it makes me think, is like, so let's remove intimate relationship from the whole thing, right? Let's remove another person, another human being from the whole thing.
Yes.
And there's a whole lot of work on this yin and yang to be done right in here, in my body, in my mind, in my heart, in my own soul, to be able to bridge those gaps, make that union, recognize where I'm shutting off that vulnerability, right? So the most masculine expression that I can possibly bring, the most fully sovereign, independent, driven, all of those things, at the heart of it is still a recognition that I am interdependent and there's no way to be separate from everyone else.
Yes.
And there's no way that I can be alone. There is no island. There is no rock. There is no, right? Like that all of the armor is fake. That
Yes.
all of those things have to be realized within me before there's ever a possibility. Like, I have to be able to embrace that tenderness inside of myself, that ultimate vulnerability inside myself, that all of those pieces before I'm prepared. And of course, was I prepared 20 years ago? Hell no. Right.
And right.
Right.
Here's the paradox. You're pointing to it so well, Boysen. This is the paradox, is both we're ready and we're not ready.
Right.
So if we're in relationship, we're meant to be in relationship. If we're not in relationship at this moment in time, we're not meant to be. And what I always say to people that come into this work is like, give yourself some time if you're not in relationship to get into relationship with you. But if the universe drops a partner on your doorstep, the universe knows better than we do. So by all means, like, follow the energy, what is presenting. But with that, it is this relationship. And even with the couples that have been married for decades that I work with, we've got to start with what's happening in each individual self, because what's happening in each individual self is defining what's happening and not happening in the partnership.
Yeah.
And that self, so there's the relating and the individuality paradox.
Yeah.
And then there is this paradox of we actually have to be sovereign in order to be united.
Both of us. Yes.
Yes, we both have to be sovereign to have the experience of unity. That's masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
And this is where we go in really to the third level of this work, the deep advanced stuff, but we're here, so I'll name it because you so beautifully said it, is that within this individual self, we layer, it's as if we're layering yin yang symbol on yin yang symbol, and that within that yin and yang, now there is both the solidity and individuality of the masculine that must exist. But we also must embrace that vulnerability, which is the core feminine in all of us. And when I get to watch the masculine beings come into, like, holy, I am vulnerable, I am tender, and that doesn't take anything away from my strength.
Yes.
And I can claim that assertiveness and that boldness and that self-expression and not lose my heart. When those two pieces can dance together, the power of that man. The tears are in the corners of my eyes. The power of that man to hold the wholeness of the masculine and the feminine within in his own right relationship.
Woohoo. And the creativity and unbelievable fierceness and strength of an integrated feminine being.
Yes.
And, an integrated woman kind of
absolutely
energy.
Absolutely. That she can be moved. Like, one of the things of the feminine is that surrender that we tend to know from more of a sexual dynamic, that letting go and allowing the pleasure to come through us. But it's also one of the incredible gifts of the feminine in the world is her capacity to be moved by whatever we might call spirit, divine, life, universe, intuition, but to let that come through her as an expression that I don't even know what moved me. But whoa, something just happened and I moved people and people were moved and my man was moved and now we're in this dance. And so that feminine, the mask of the strong, independent woman is where she can let go of that control and open into the creative, dynamic, expressive.
There's a kind of letting go of the mask of the independent woman in order to do the work to embody something else. And the image that just came to me is tides.
Yes.
It's going to lift everything. Doesn't matter how damn heavy it is.
Yep.
Like, unbelievable strength to move things.
Yes.
And that kind of
Yes.
big ocean energy.
Big ocean energy, forces of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Like the creation and destruction, the continual cycles of Mother Nature, that is also representative of the feminine. These energies are happening within us, between us in relationship, and beyond us in the world itself. And we all are being called, in my opinion, to welcome and honor and even revere that depth of the masculine and that depth of the feminine, and how we play together.
Yeah.
What's up, everyone? Brandon here. And, I grew up thinking hustle was the only way. I had to push through, grind, burn myself out, rinse and repeat. But now I know better. These days I'm chasing flow, that steady energy, sharp mind, calm focus. That's why I start every morning with Magic Mind. It's not an energy drink. It is a mental performance shot built to keep me level and productive all day. No crash. You can get your hands on Magic Mind when you go to magicmind.com/mankind50 and use code mankind50 for up to 48% off. When you support our sponsors, you support our show, and trust me, you will not regret it when you get your hands on this stuff.
And how in each of us, in each being, there is going to be some magical mixture that is our authentic self, that is disconnected from the body that I was born into, and so much, there's part of me that wishes, like, damn, I wish we didn't have these words that were attached to these things that tie them to our sex organs and bodies.
Yes.
Because it's so much easier to understand. It's so much easier in a men's group to get a guy to say, hey, it's actually okay and empowering to let that tear go. And not say, and it's not feminine, dude.
Can I play with you on that one?
You can. Okay, you want to push on me? That's fine.
Well, I said play. I like. I think this is, and I'm hoping you're good with playing, because I think there's so much judgment of femininity that emotionality comes from our feminine side. Doesn't matter what body we're in. This is my opinion. The emotionality, the flow, the tenderness is actually that piece of yin that's in the middle of the yang. So what if we called a spade, and it was okay to have the feminine side showing up, and that the tear was an aspect of that beautiful, exquisite, and oh, by the way, makes a man freaking hot to a woman when he can hold that tenderness but doesn't lose his presence. And we could say more about that, but I just want to plant the seed that this is actually when in my experience with the worked with, that when he can own a feminine aspect of himself, that tender, soft side, oh my God. So why not say, it doesn't not make you a man, but it is an aspect of your feminine expression, and that was healthy and good and in service to you and the whole. That is my opinion.
Yeah, I hear that. I feel it. And again, it and maybe it's just part of the enculturation, right? We talk a lot about kind of man box culture in here, and those, core tenets of the man box that we get pushed on us relentlessly as little boys and little girls.
Yeah.
The keys to being a man are: don't be like a woman. Reject the feminine.
Yes.
Reject all of it. And reject all of those parts of yourself that might be labeled feminine.
Yes.
And I think that there is a lot of fun play. So, right, there's a lot of play. Are you familiar with Alok Vedmano?
I don't. I'm not. Tell me more.
Look up Alok.
Okay.
Alok. And if you just look up Alok stand up, Alok is a non-binary person and just absolutely smashes all of them, all of the boundaries.
Oh, sweet.
Right?
Okay. Yep.
And what I love about listening to Alok is that they are able to illustrate and speak to this really well about what happens when you are able to disconnect from the attachment to not be this or to be this.
Yes.
And how much more freely the energy flows through you, how much more freely we can express ourselves, how much more vulnerable and strong we can be in the culture. And then because of that expression, how much more love is available, right? Like Alok speaks to that really beautifully. Is like, I'm such a threat to white hetero guys because they see that there is a whole new level of love available to them that they have been told that they can't have.
I love this. And it really is like the heart of everything that I stand for is this love. And I think the reason that I love what you're bringing up with Alok, because it's embracing, it is loving every aspect of ourselves. It is honoring that in ourselves first, because then we have the capacity to do it in others. But it's really the call to embrace every single expression of humanity, in my opinion, and that being the heart of love. And so as you bring that in, and I think it's why, like, I want to say to masculine beings, don't reject that more yin side of yourself. And that I think it's part of the problem in our world.
Yes.
The feminine, I don't want to be feminine. I don't want to be yin. The judgment for all of us on this tender, loving energy,
right,
is so huge. And I think it's part of what we have to heal right now, is that it's not bad to have yin energy for any of us. And what if we leaned into that more?
Well, caring is painful.
Yes.
And I think that we're all living in a time where that is one of the other conversations that I'm in on a regular basis is with the Boysen Men's Compassion Initiative, which is about fostering compassion both within, for boys and men, from within boys and men, and for boys and men from outside of boys and men. And one of the things that we keep running into is guys will reject the idea of compassion.
Yes, totally. I'm not shocked.
Right? But not because at an essential level, because caring is hard.
Yeah, it's vulnerable.
Caring deeply and having compassion and being in empathy and being willing to take action toward the benefit of another person is painful.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's easier in some ways for many of us, right? And this is men, women, this is all of us, right? Yes. To just cut ourselves off from that.
Yes.
But that is the thing that it seems to me, in my opinion, that we need more of in the world for all of us, right? Just that embracing care.
I could take what you just said and multiply it by 1,000 at least and say yes to that. I think that we need that care and that compassion, to see the humanity of each other, the vulnerability of each other. And is it hard? Holy yes. This is admitting the fragility. This is, and like in all of us, even the greatest warrior has a fragility within this human form.
Yeah.
And to own that, it's one of the reasons that some of the unconscious masculine shows up in my experience, because so don't want to touch that. I'm going to show up in this you can't mess with me kind of way.
Yeah.
But misses out on everything. And then there's all the relative in between. But armor up, warrior up, so I don't have to touch this compassionate, scary. Holy moly, scary. It is, vulnerability is the most courageous thing we could do.
All of us. Yes.
All of us. All of us.
Which also means letting go of, now we're back into the kind of realm of relationship on some level, which also means letting go of fear of, hatred of, misogyny, misandry, like all of this kind of, projection culture that we have, which has me, painting reality with broad brush and making ins and outs and making others and, my people and those people kind of universe.
Yes, Boysen, thank you for bringing that in. And those broad brushstrokes are so harmful. They're so harmful. Are there people who are unconscious in our world? 10,000%. Are there a lot of people who are conscious and are getting caught up in those broad brushstrokes that it is completely unfair and unjust? Absolutely. And this space where we can come back person to person, relationship to relationship, community to community, and bigger and bigger and bigger, to see and meet human to human. And that is the only way that I think we can shift what is being called to shift in our world. And so stopping the labels, we can say, I experience that as an I statement for me. I'm projecting, I can tell my stories of what I'm projecting, right? The story I'm making up, but starting to see each other. And these broad brush strokes are not true. Are there aspects and pockets? Yes. But until we start to deal with it on an individual basis, nothing will change. It's Mother Teresa. You want to change the world, go home and change yourself. Where am I being? Where am I holding those energies? And I can say, I have held some of those energies and judgments against the feminine as a very feminine being. I got to keep doing my own work. And the masculine has to look at, where do they do their work? And how do we do it together? And how do we hold each other in it? Individual to individual.
Thank you. So as we're getting toward the end of the conversation here, I think where I'm going to go is, now let's go back to the real stuff. You've been doing a lot of work with individuals and couples navigating relationship dynamics. Are there is there a 2 or a 3 kind of thing, like, hey, you out there struggling in your relationship, here's the first place to look and the second place to look if you want to start healing that?
Yeah. And it almost it's a broad, I will call this a broad brushstroke, but the reasons that relationships fail is I'll say the reasons relationships typically fail is because we're not in relationship with ourselves. So, what's her name? I can't think of her name right now. I'm trying to give her credit. 40-year marriage therapist. The number one destroyer of intimate relationships, Margaret Paul. Okay. Margaret Paul. I was talking about this before a client brought me one of her articles, but that the number one destroyer of intimate relationships is actually self-abandonment.
Ooh, juicy.
It's self-abandonment. And that means this relationship with ourselves. So we've got to start. And what most people do, and a lot of the program work out there, tries to go solve the relationship problem. But we can't use Einstein's quote, we can't solve the problem at the level that it was created. It's not, most of our relational dynamics have to do with how the two beings are showing up in that. So if you want to attract a better relationship, get into your ecstatic authenticity, get into who you truly are, and commit to not selling yourself out and settling. This relationship, the relationship that comes from that place, is built on truth. is built on choice, is built on two beings that are coming together, committed to working through the inevitable shit that's going to show up. And if you're in relationship, the vulnerable, courageous part, it's really easy to point that finger over there and go, she's not, he's not. If this was, what's happening over here? What's happening in me? So to come back here, Rumi says, it's not for us to seek for love, but to seek and find all the barriers we've built against it.
Yeah.
And that's the heart of it.
Nice. Thank you. So, Joanna Shakti, where should folks reach out to find you out there on the interwebs and learn more about what you're doing?
Absolutely. ecstaticintimacy.com. And there are tons of articles and some videos and lots of things, retreats and experiences that you can really just dive in and explore what's possible on that website. So ecstaticintimacy.com. Thank you, Boysen.
Thank you.
So much.
Joanna, it's been great to hang out with you for a while and learn. I look forward to meeting you actually in person in this wild big tent that's coming up in a week. And yeah, it's been an enlivening, energizing conversation.
I totally agree. Thank you so much for the space to really talk about some of the edgy things. And it's super powerful and super important. So thank you for this space and this conversation.
Look below in the show notes for links to Joanna and keep coming back.
This has been the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. And of course, I want to thank you, the listener, because through your attention and your support, you make it a heck of a lot easier for us to let men out there in the world know that they are not alone and that there is more than one way to be a man. And if you've been enjoying the music throughout this episode and all of our episodes, check out Jim, Donovan, and the Sun King Warriors. I have links to them in the show notes. Now, the fee for this episode is simple. If you found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, remember that life doesn't happen to us. It happens for us, so long as we rip the pen out of fate's hand and become the author of our own story. So, my friend, pick up the pen, and we'll see you next week. Lots of love.
Hey, it's Boysen. On the Mankind Podcast, we've brought some incredible guests on to talk about the importance of doing the work to improve our mental and emotional health. And here's the truth. Multiple times over the last 25 years, I've had the help of one-on-one work with some amazing therapists. For me, for my wife, for both of us as adoptive parents, and for our kids. The Mankind Project and Men's Group, though awesome, are not a substitute for professional mental health support. And so I'm thrilled that the Mankind Podcast now has BetterHelp as a sponsor for the show. BetterHelp works online. It asks you what you're working on and then matches you for live one-on-one sessions with a licensed therapist, someone trained to work with you, listen, and offer helpful insights. I'm using BetterHelp. It's super easy, and I like what I'm getting. If getting one-on-one support in the comfort of your own space feels like a good direction for you, I invite you to check it out. Go to the link in the show notes or betterhelp.com/mankind. And if you sign up, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy.